Everybody. Thanks so much, Paige. And hi, everybody. I'm Allison Pugh. I teach study strategies at DMAC Ankeny campus. And as I was saying earlier this morning to Paige's other class, study strategies may sound super, super boring and not like something that you want to listen to for the next half an hour or so. And I totally get it. But the way that I talk about study strategies, since I've started to teach this a decade ago at DMAC, is kind of like life strategies. These are all pieces of advice that I wish I would have gotten when I was much, much younger. They've taken me a long time to figure out. And a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, whether it's time management or taking care of yourself or, active memorization, managing distractions, all those things. These are all things that you not only have to deal with as a high school student or a college student, but as an adult in your professional and personal life. So I teach a course on study strategies, but really it's evolved into how to be a happy, high functioning college student and adult. And I hope that you get something out of these 13 pieces of advice. One thing you might want to do before we get started, just to kind of keep you on track, is number 1 through 13 on a piece of paper, or in some way keep track of what we're talking about, because we're going to dip back at the end and I'm going to ask you a few questions. So without further ado, everybody can see my top tips for college student PowerPoint, I'm assuming. Let's go on to the first one, which is psych, not number 1. Before we even start talking about any specific skills, it's really important for everybody, and I just welcome you to this right now. Just take a deep breath. Just relax. It's all going to be okay. I think it's really hard to go through life with like your shoulders up by your ears and your jaw clenched and your teeth gritted, just trying to muscle your way through your day and kind of deal with your day as kind of an anxiety inducing thing. We really need to realize that we function better as human beings if we can kind of get to a more clear, more calm headspace, kind of an even mind, where research shows that if you can allow your anxiety to diminish, you kind of open up the field of vision, and you become more open to learning, to memorizing, to just being a better version of yourself. So anxiety and negativity give us tunnel vision. And so I'm going to ask you all just to take a deep breath and know it's all going to be okay, because it helps you emotionally. It also helps you be higher functioning. So stop freaking out. And freaking out doesn't help. If it helped, I would say absolutely, let's all freak out. I used to be a when in doubt, freak out person 100%, and I'm not so much anymore. I'm working on that. It's helped tremendously. So my next piece of advice is be a good bunny. And that may sound kind of, silly, but when I say be a good bunny, it just means things like sit up, take notes, put your phone away, eat breakfast, go to bed at a decent hour, make choices that help you during the day. So when in doubt, think, what's my next good choice? What could I do that would help me achieve my goals, or just be a version of myself that I want to be? So just be a good bunny. In general, make good choices. And we've all had days where maybe we haven't made good choices. We're all humans, right? We watch too much TV, play too many video games, we were on our phones too long, we didn't get enough sleep, or whatever, right? Anything under the sun where you're like, that wasn't a good bunny move, and I know it. I'm not saying that those are never going to happen, but just in general, trying to be a good bunny, trying to make good choices, because the flip side of that is that you get to feel better about yourself. When I make good choices, I feel better. Abraham Lincoln has a quote that I really like. It says, when I do good, I feel good. And when I do bad, I feel bad. And that is my religion. I really like that quote from Abraham Lincoln way back in the day, because when you do good, you feel good. It's true. So be a good bunny. Also try something new. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. The only way to get a different result is to try things differently. I have a lot of students who just try the same stuff all the time, and then they wonder why they're getting the same results. And I say, you have to shake up your snow globe. That doesn't mean that you have to work harder necessarily, but you may have to work differently. So try something new and keep trying new things until you find what works for you. For example, you may want to go to the Academic Achievement Center at the Ankeny campus to get help with math. And that's something that you haven't done before, but that would be a much better idea than just sitting at home and trying to suffer through your math homework and being miserable and feeling frustrated and giving up, which is what I would do because I'm a baby about math. So I have to go to the AAC and put myself in a different environment and try something new, even if it makes me feel a little agitated or weird, because I know that when I'm agitated or when I'm like, oh, this feels a little different, that's perfect, because those are growing pains. That's like me getting stronger and higher functioning. So try new things, and also create better systems. So For example, you may have a system of procrastination. I don't know whether any of you are procrastinators. I used to be a huge procrastinator. Procrastination is not a character trait. It doesn't mean you're lazy or bad in any way. It just means that that's the system that you're using. You're doing things the last minute. Maybe you're always doing the least amount of work possible, just trying to kind of skate by, kind of half-ass things. And so you need a better system of getting things done in a way that isn't just making it up as you go. You have to be deliberate and intentional about, I'm going to do this at this time, instead of kind of choosing your own adventure during the day. Because when we kind of do all those mental gymnastics of, when am I going to do that? Oh, I'll do it later. That's not a good system. That's a system for choice, and we usually choose wrong because we're human. So creating good systems is, I think, not only a student thing that we have to think about, but for me, my systems are what keep me high functioning, whether that's putting myself to bed on time, dealing with my phone and distractions, getting my work done, exercising, everything, right? It's all a system that I've created that works for me. It's not just happenstance. The quote that I want to leave you with on this slide is, stop worrying about the big stuff because it paralyzes you, and focus on getting the little stuff right every day. Then the positive ripple effect will change your life. So it's really easy to get overwhelmed and shut down by all the things that you have to do and all the choices that you have to make, right? Choice is paralyzing. Sometimes when you have so many choices, whether it's your career, relationships, whatever, you're like, that's too much, and then you shut down. So very normal. But what I want you to think about instead is, I don't have to worry about everything right now. All I have to worry about is, what is my next good choice? Because when you have those good choices and they add up day after day, week after week, month after month, your goals will take care of themselves. You will get the job that you want. You'll get your degree. You'll have better relationships. All of the things that you want are on the other side of those good choices. So we just have to think about today, what's my next good choice? And then trust the process. And the process will get you there, I guarantee you. So now we're ready for number one. Are we ready? It basically is a dip back. So number one is, don't treat college like you treated high school. I have a lot of students, and I was this way myself. They come to college and nobody just sprinkles study strategies on you like Miracle-Gro. Like, sometimes we don't know what to do. So we just do what we've done in the past, and we hope that it works. And maybe that is doing things at the last minute, not asking for help, or, just kind of always doing stuff with the TV on or with the phone right in front of you, or just kind of things that we've kind of done and we've been able to do in the past that maybe we got by just fine. But in college, it's a whole new ball game, right? It's not grade 13. So I tell students, if you're doing the same thing in college that you did in high school, you're probably doing it wrong. So you have to be much more active. You have to get outside your comfort zone. You have to shake up your snow globe and keep shaking it up until you find what works for you. And maybe what works for you is not doing your homework at home. At home for me is where all the distractions are. I have a dog, Homer, that I'm obsessed with. I love him so much. He's much more fun than some of the other things I have to do for work. So I'm going to play with Homer, or I'm going to procrastinate. I'll do laundry or sweep or something, because that I'm still doing something, but so I'm being active, but it's not what I should be doing. So I kind of make different choices at home. But if I do stuff at DMAC, and sometimes I'll just drive to campus on a Sunday and lock myself in my office, and then I just slay. I get so much stuff done, but it's because I decided to not be comfortable at home and instead put myself in a different environment. So it's one example of being more active and deliberate and intentional and getting outside your comfort zone and trying a new environment, maybe a new system, a new resource, maybe using a planner for the first time. I use a planner. I would be lost without it. Here it is. Even have a little sticky note, virtual sessions for today, because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget. I also use, I know this is so exciting, right? But this is my to-do list. It's messy. It doesn't matter. It makes sense to me. So these are things I didn't do when I was younger, but I had to challenge myself to try to use some kind of a better system and get outside my comfort zone and really be a better version of myself, a higher functioning version of myself. And now that I do this, I realize that all of it's different from what I used to do, and all of it helps me tremendously. So you got to try to do different things. Again, if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. So we have to shake things up, and that's a good thing. That agitation that you feel when you try something new is growing pains. It's good. I want you to feel weird. I want you to be unrecognizable to yourself because you are so high functioning. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm killing it. And again, that's going to feel weird until you get used to it. That's a good thing. Okay. So the next one is use a planner. I just showed you mine. But what I talk to students about is, your brains are so busy. Mine is very, very busy. I'm always thinking about something or whatever. And we're always doing the mental gymnastics of like, what do I got to do? What am I thinking about? And your poor little brains are so overworked and so overstressed. What you have to do is offload some of that mental gymnastics into a system where you can keep track of it. So for me, it's a paper planner and a daily to-do list. It's just a little spiral notebook, not a big deal, nothing fancy. For other students, it may be a Google Calendar on your phone with notifications, or it may be a whiteboard that you use along with like sticky notes on your laptop or a little notepad where you keep track of your daily to-do list. It doesn't matter to me what system you use. It just matters to me that you use a system, because this right between your ears, this poor little brain of yours, should not be your system. We have to offload some of that into some kind of a format that you can look at every day and keep track of. And also I would throw out this piece of research that you are 80% more likely to complete a task if you write it down. If you just keep it up here, it's really easy to think, oh, I'll do it later, or something else comes up and you get distracted and you don't prioritize it. We've all been there, right? So we have to write it down or make ourselves accountable in some way. And then also one thing that's interesting is when you write something down, you're 80% more likely to do it. When you cross that thing off of your to-do list, you get a dopamine hit. You get like a little spray of happy chemicals, a little splash of dopamine in your brain that goes, yay, that's a good feeling. Keep that up. So the research shows that your brain chemistry changes as you get your to-do list done. It's a wonderful thing. And as the more you get done using your planner, staying on top of things, using your to-do list, the more you're going to build momentum, and objects in motion stay in motion. Objects at rest stay at rest. I don't know whether you guys have ever had a day where you didn't do much. I have, where you're just like on your phone, watching TV, laying in bed, like just not cleaning, not really doing anything, not going out. And the less you do, the less you want to do. And then also on the flip side, I've had days where I get up and I have some coffee and I look at my to-do list and I try to get something done right away. And then that builds momentum for the rest of my day, because the more I do, the more I want to do. I'm like, oh, I got that done. I got that done. What else could I get done? It builds on itself. But it's hard to do that if you're keeping everything in your head. So we have to have a paper calendar or a planner, a to-do list, something digitally, a whiteboard, something, right? To keep track and offload some of that stuff from your poor busy brains. We need to look at it every day, update it every day, keep it moving, keep it moving. And again, be intentional about your day. Andrew Huberman is a Stanford neurologist. He's got a PhD. He's amazing. And the thing that I love about what he says, he's a very successful person. He says every day he wakes up and the word that he thinks of first is deliberate. He wants to be deliberate about his day and about how he takes care of himself and about how he gets his work done and about his thoughts. He wants as much as possible to be deliberate so that he has some sense of control over like, this is what I'm doing and this is working for me, instead of just like leaving everything up to chance. So create a system for yourself that's consistent yet flexible. You're going to have to tweak this. There's no perfect system, but again, we need a system of some kind. Boom. Go to every class. You guys are here. You're awesome. This is half the battle, right? It's just showing up. But 90% of success in life is really just showing up. When I went to Lewis and Clark College in Portland, Oregon, I got a scholarship there a million years ago. I don't even remember why I went. I was just like, it sounds like a good idea. It was like over 30 years ago. But I didn't know what to do. I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. I had no study skills. I didn't know how to read actively, take notes, study. I didn't know anything. But the one thing I did that was good is I went to class. And that was because I was getting a scholarship, and I would have felt kind of embarrassed if I was just like sitting in the dorm room, not going to class. Like, I better just show up, right? That saved me. Because I always knew what was going on. I at least had some notes. I could ask the professor if I had a question. I knew, when the tests were. Like, I was in the game. There's a professor of mathematics at Dartmouth College, and he uses the analogy of being a swimmer in a stream, which is why I have a fish on this slide. And so if you're a college student, or just in life, I would argue, as long as you keep swimming, you're okay, right? You can keep up with the current. But if you drift to the bank and you tread water a little bit and hang out, and then you try to get back in the current and catch up with everybody else, it is a very stressful and hard situation. And we've all been there, right? You kind of dig yourself into a hole. Maybe you don't go to class, you don't do the homework, and then you have to dig yourself out of that hole, which makes everything twice as hard and twice as stressful. So really the name of the game is stay on top of things. Now, if you can't go to class because you're sick or whatever, just email your instructor. And again, we just practice being an adult in the world and communicating and saying, this is why I missed. I'm going to look at Canvas. I'll let you know if I have any questions. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week. We use these soft skills, these professional skills. We communicate with people effectively so that they know that we're in the game and that we're not just going missing in action. And really the name of the game is just keep swimming. That's, again, most of it. All right, so take notes. You're all maybe taking notes, hopefully now, 1 through 13. How many of you have been in class physically at some point in the past, but mentally or emotionally, you're a million miles away? Like your butt's in the chair, but you're not really there. Taking notes gives you the opportunity to practice being present. You showed up, you turned on your computer, you drove to campus. Practice being present and being the best version of yourself. You're not just a spectator or an audience while your professor is performing, right? You're not an audience member. You are an active participant. So sit up, take notes, nod your head, ask questions, all of these things. It may feel a little bit weird, but that's you being the best version of yourself. And again, I want you to at some point just be unrecognizable to yourself because you're so much different and higher functioning than you ever have been before. If you don't know what to write for your notes, ask your instructor. I use the example of Stacy Vaughn, who teaches biology at the Ankeny campus. She recommends that students download the PowerPoints for her lecture, or they print them out. And there's a way that you can do that has the PowerPoint on one side and like a little box where you can take notes on the other side. And that helps you take notes more effectively. Maybe it's like a philosophy class though, or a history class where like maybe not much is on the board and you have to be listening. At least you could have the goal of, I want to fill up 1 page of notes per class, or I want to at least write down 5 things. Set the intention of, I'm going to be active and do something and take notes. Otherwise, it's really easy to only be there partially. And we want to practice being in life fully, being fully engaged. The payoff is remarkable. So you're going to take some notes. You're going to take notes that you're proud of, that you're like, oh my gosh, look at these notes. They're awesome. But once you take your notes, you have to do something with them. And that can be the hard thing for students. I have students that take gorgeous notes. They use different colors and bullets and they're organized and they have the date on the top. And I'm like, yes, chef's kiss, love your notes. But then they don't look at them until the night before the test when they'll sit and stare at them. And they'll use the stare method. And that's not enough. We have to interact with the information. We have to do something with it. So there is a way that you can take notes on a laptop. If you're taking notes using like a Word document or a Google document, you could have the term on one side and then one tab and then a definition in your own words, preferably. After that, so again, term or vocabulary word or concept or whatever, and then one tab, and then the definition. If you do it that way and structure your notes that way, you can copy that and you can import it into Quizlet. And you can make a Quizlet set for yourself, which is, again, great to interact with the information and not just stare at it. You can also type up a summary sheet. A lot of students do this where I used to be, as a student, the kind of thing where I would go to class and take notes, and then I would read the chapter, but I wouldn't know how to incorporate them together. And so one thing that, again, Stacy Vaughn and I have talked about is for some classes, this super helps to do the reading or at least preview it before the information is lectured on. So you come to class with some kind of like skeleton outline of concepts or ideas, and then you can just augment or add to those with class. And so you kind of combine the book notes with your class notes and make like one summary sheet. That's a fantastic thing to do. My son, who goes to school in New York at the Culinary Institute, he loves old school flashcards. He just makes them. And again, that's really active. He's very kinesthetic. He likes to move around. And so for him, that really works. Another thing to really keep in mind is that as you're looking at your notes, whether it's through Quizlet, summary sheets, or whatever, you have to do more than have your eyeballs on the information, because what students get from that is called recognition level understanding. You're looking at stuff and you're like, yeah, I recognize that. Yeah, that makes sense. That's familiar to me now. I get it. But then have you ever done that? And then you get to the test and you're like, I thought I had it. I don't have it. Like, oops. What happened? What happened is in my world, we talk about input and output. Input is you're getting the information in your brain. You're like, get in brain, whether it's a vocabulary word, a formula, whatever it is, right? You're like, get in brain, get in brain, get in brain. That's input. But the opposite, or not the opposite, but the other side of that is the output, the retrieval. Your job as a student, and I think as any kind of a learner in your profession or whatever, is a translator. So your job is to take in information and do something with it to the point where you can actually have an informed conversation about it. If you can't talk about it, you don't know it. Maybe you can recognize it on a piece of paper, but you don't really know it. So you have to have the output or the retrieval, like the out loud is magic, like the informed conversation. I have a friend who's the head nurse at Simpson College, and she was getting her nurse practitioner's degree while she was working, and she had a 5-year-old. Very busy person. But she would get up at 5 in the morning because that was her system of getting stuff done, because after her child woke up at 6:30, the day started, right? Breakfast, get him to school. After work, she had dinner, bath, bedtime. She didn't want to start her homework at 9, 10 o'clock at night because she knew she'd be exhausted. So 5 o'clock in the morning, she got up, had a big cup of coffee, and she would sit there with her notes from class or the notes from the textbook, and she would kind of mutter to herself. And I know this because we went on vacation together, and I would see her in the morning doing this. So I actually witnessed it. She would sit there with a big, lamp shining right on her stuff, and her phone nowhere in sight because she didn't need it. And she would be like, okay, this means this. And I would just hear her kind of muttering like that. But she knew that if she couldn't say it out loud without looking at it, she didn't know it. So she just automatically was doing this as an active way to study. She got her nurse practitioner's degree. She's killing it. She's amazing. But again, she knew she couldn't just be a silent studier. We have to have the input and we have to have the output, the retrieval. So out loud is magic. I'm going to make t-shirts someday. It's huge. Okay, guys, that was a big one. Thanks for listening. Here's another one. This is an easy one. Some students, and maybe you guys can kind of, recognize this in yourselves, but they have a hard time asking for help. They feel embarrassed. They feel like there's like a stigma about it. They feel like it's like a sign of weakness. But I'm here to tell you right now, if you get nothing else out of this presentation, know this the rest of your lives. It is the high functioning people in life that ask for help. It is a sign that you are the hero of your own story. You're like advocating for yourself. You want to meet your goals. You want to do things differently. You want to receive help. And this is what high functioning adults do. I ask for help all the time, and it makes me stronger and smarter and better at my job, right? And better at life. I have zero qualms about it. I ask for help. And so when you have a test or a quiz or a paper that you get back, or you're just struggling, your job is to go to the instructor and say, hey, use again, the soft skills, the communication skills. Thank you so much. I'm really finding your class interesting. I'm having a hard time with this. I was hoping you could help me. Again, thank you for your time. We use the pleases and the thank yous, and we ask for help, and we see what we get. And hopefully the instructor is going to help us. And if not, you have other resources. You can go to the AAC, the tutoring center. We have lots of help available. I can tell you 5 different ways to get help aside from your instructor. At DMAC, we have lots of free assistance. And again, it's the high functioning people that take advantage of these. You can form a study group, but the worst thing you could do is isolate and feel bad. Like you get that grade back, or you fail a class, even whatever, and you just kind of hole up and TikTok and ice cream or whatever, right? You self-soothe. You need to, as my nephew Connor, who went to the Naval Academy, says, you need to embrace the suck. Run towards the pain. Know that on the other side of that is everything you ever wanted, right? So you have to be willing to not be a bumper car where you're like, anytime something gets hard, nope, I don't want to do that. If it's hard, that may mean that you have to go at it a little bit harder and do something that you're not comfortable doing, which is maybe ask for help. So if you're having trouble asking for help, I promise you, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And you want to do it before it's too late. As soon as you get that icky feeling like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted, that's when you need to ask for help. That's the only way that's going to make that icky feeling go away. So please be more open to that if that's something that's hard for you. All right, the next one, you guys are more than halfway done. You're doing great. Be organized. This is a simple one. Keep your game tight, right? So maybe you have a class where you're getting paper handouts from your instructor or whatever, get a little 2-pocket folder for them. Or maybe if it's something that it's an online class, keep a folder specifically on your laptop for that class. Keep all your assignments there. Keep a master schedule of what you need to do. The tighter that your game is academically, the calmer you're going to feel and the more clarity you're going to have. And I also would remind you gently that your outer world tends to reflect your inner state of mind. So if you go home and your bedroom is a hot mess, there are dirty dishes in the sink, everything's just kind of, I'll do it later. That tends to be a symptom of where you're at mentally and emotionally, like we're kind of stuck. And so I would argue that the more organized you are across the board in your life, the more you're going to feel calm, you're going to feel clear about things. And research shows that students who get to this point where they're more positive because they feel more organized, they have a better emotional well-being, and they also are able, their brain actually receives and remembers information more effectively than people who are always kind of hunched in, like in this defensive negative mode where they're like, oh, I'm stressed out, I'll do it later. We want to open up the playing field and open up your field of vision. And one of the ways to do this is to keep yourself organized so that you don't have to worry about, oh, I got to do the dishes, I got to do my laundry, where's that? All those mental gymnastics, all those mental games you play where you're like, oh, I'll do it later. No, do it now. And when you do that, you get the gift of a calm, clear mind that's ready to work. So keep track of all your stuff. And again, I am living proof that my game did not used to be tight. Now it is tight, and I will never go back because I realize how much nicer it is to do a little bit of work every day and to feel on top of things, and then to let things build up and dread them. Yeah, I've been there. It's better to do it this way. All right. Another one that's kind of a big one is study smart. You only have one flashlight, my people. So James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, which is a wonderful book. I don't know about, yes, I have it right here. I don't know if you guys can see this, Atomic Habits. I love this book so much. He talks about the concept of half work, and half work is where you basically, you're working, but you're also like phone or roommate or my dog's right here, or you're kind of like working, but not working, like only with half your brain. And we need to realize that the biggest gift, this is huge, you guys, the biggest gift that you can give to your learning is your attention. I'll say it again. The biggest gift that you can give to your learning is your attention. But how many times do we try to do something, but we're not really giving it our full attention? We're distracted by our phones usually, right? Or other people or whatever. So try to study where you're not going to be distracted. Do the breaststroke, right? So we remove everything from our line of vision that doesn't serve us, and we add in the positive cues. One positive cue that I have in front of me, and I actually, where is it right now? This is it's actually at my home office, but I have a picture of my grandmother. And my grandmother passed away right before the pandemic. And she was one of the coolest people I ever knew. She was so classy, so smart, so nice, and just so good with people. And I found her to be just a really good role model. And so during the pandemic, when everything was really stressful, I had a picture of her right next to my computer at home when I was teaching virtually, just to kind of remind me to be that version of myself that I want to be, right? I want to be more like her. So you remove things that don't serve you, like your phone or whatever, people that are bugging you or anything that would distract you. And you only add in the things that will keep you on track, like maybe your planner, a glass of water, some Kleenex, whatever, your to-do list, whatever. Try not to study when you're tired, because when you're tired, your brain is in survival mode. It's not in open receptive learning mode. You're just getting through it. You're not really absorbing it. Try not to study for more than 20 minutes at a time. Your brain takes a mental vacation after 20 minutes anyways, so short and sweet is great. I'd much rather have you hyper focus and give something your full attention for 15 or 20 minutes than half focus and give something your half attention for 3 hours. So we think hyper focus, zero in, get it done, and then take a break and then come back. You got to turn the TV off, obviously put the phone away, remove the distractions, sit up, because when you're sitting slumped like this or on your bed or whatever, your physical body is giving your brain signals about what's going on, and your brain is getting the signal that it's not time to engage. So we have to let our brains know this is go time, this is work time, we're going to get a break, but for right now we're going to hyper focus and get something done. It really helps to be where other people are more productive. Like for me, I'm a toddler when it comes to math. As soon as somebody puts a math problem in front of me, I literally become 3 years old. I'm like, this is too hard. This sucks. I hate it. I'm dumb. I get dark and weird. I'm not proud of this behavior. I have what's called a fixed mindset about math. I just feel like I can't do it. So I have to study if I was studying math, study in the AAC around other people who are doing math, who are struggling through it too, and the math professors who are there who can help me if I need help, who can help me not be a baby about it, but oh, you can do this, and I can have that out loud as magic informed conversation with them where I'm talking through it, processing it with other people. Where I study is 50% of my success. If I'm studying at home by myself, I'm going to give up. If I study with other people who are being productive, who can help me be on track, that's going to be much more effective. I also have to set boundaries with other people. They need to know that I'm not going to answer a text. I'm not going to answer a phone call. I'm not available. And you all, I'm sure, set boundaries with other people well and have other people set boundaries with you well. But I want you to remember that you're important and what you're doing matters. And if other people aren't respecting that and respecting your time, you may want to rethink that relationship, because you would respect that for other people, right? If you had a friend who was saying, I got to get this paper done, you say, oh, okay, we'll hang out later, because you're lovely human beings and you want your friend to be successful. You deserve that same treatment. So demand it from other people. It's not you being a jerk. It's you being an adult and setting boundaries, which is a very healthy, good thing. Remember, you only have one flashlight, right? So we hyper focus, we don't do the half work, we put our phones away, we train ourselves to be fully present for short periods of time. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. It's a good, good thing. That was a big one. Okay, on your plate, off your plate. Now we have a fun little story time. So I mentioned my nephew, Connor, who went to the Naval Academy. And he is an inspiration to me, because when he was in 8th grade years ago, he's 28 years old now. But years ago, when he was in 8th grade, he was smart but lazy. I don't know whether you guys know anybody who's smart but lazy, but Connor sure was smart but lazy. He like had a Lamborghini car, but there was like a monkey driving it. We were like, this kid, what are we going to do with him? We knew he was super smart, but it's like, could you engage? But what happened was, one day he was watching TV. It's a true story. And he saw on TV one of those military boot camp shows where, I don't know whether you guys have seen anything like this, where they show the Marines charging through the surf, carrying the logs, or going up and over, barbed wire, just like doing obstacle courses. And he lit up like a Christmas tree in 8th grade. He's like, oh, my people, those are my people. I want to do that. And we were like, okay, we don't have a lot of military people in our family. We have some people in older generations, right? But not a lot of people right now. So we didn't take him very seriously, but he took it seriously. He was seriously inspired. And so what was interesting is that from 9th grade, the beginning of 9th grade until 12th grade, he never got another B, all A's. And he got into the Naval Academy, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys know about the Naval Academy, but it's like Harvard. It's really hard to get into. It's very selective. They only take a few people from each state. Like, it's a big deal. We were super impressed. He got into the Naval Academy, graduated from the Naval Academy. He married another Naval Academy graduate. They are the most badass couple on the planet. Now she works at the Pentagon, and he is getting a master's degree in international relations. I mean, he has met all of his goals. Very high functioning person. And I asked him one day, I said, Connor, you flipped a switch. Like, from 8th grade to 9th grade, you became this different person. What happened to you? And he said this, and I stole it from him. He said, on my plate, off my plate. He said, as soon as something came in, it's like he made a game. He's like, how soon could I get it done? Because for procrastinators, starting is harder than doing. And one little interesting piece of research that you might find interesting about this is that when they've done brain research on people who are procrastinating, what happens is, when the thought of doing something difficult actually fires up the part of your brain that mimics the pain centers, like you're actually predicting in your brain that something is going to be physically painful, like studying for a test or starting a paper or a chapter or something. Your brain doesn't really know the difference between the pain of that task and like hitting your thumb with a hammer or something. It's predicting pain. It's actually lighting up in the same way that your brain would light up when it's predicting pain. But then, so that's when you haven't done it yet. You're thinking about it and you want to procrastinate because you want, like when you look at your phone, then you get the dopamine hit of your phone, and that makes that pain, those pain receptors calm down, right? So that's why you procrastinate and look at TikTok, because you want your brain chemistry to change from pain receptors to dopamine. But starting is harder than doing. So once you start a task, if you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, go, or set a timer for 5 minutes. Like once you like get over that hump of starting, what happens is those pain receptors calm down. And then on the flip side of that, you get the dopamine hit you get a dopamine hit from task completion. So once you start something, your brain calms down, those pain receptors stop firing, and then you get something done. And then you start to get those happy chemicals from, oh, look, I was being productive. So think about your brain chemistry and think about getting a dopamine hit, not from TikTok, but from getting something done. So on your plate, off your plate helps you with starting things, because starting is harder than doing. But also for Connor, it gave him the opportunity to start something. And then if he was struggling with it, he still had time to ask for help. I have students that do things at the last minute. Like I have a homework assignment that's due for my STV 115 class, and it's due at midnight on like a Wednesday. And I see that people have submitted it at 11:50 that night, 10 minutes before the deadline, and they had a whole week to do it. So they're in the habit of procrastinating. And again, that's a habit, not a character trait. It's just a system that they're using that's a crappy system. So what that is what that means is that if they had a problem with the assignment, I'm not going to help them at 11 o'clock at night. There's no time to get help then, right? And there's no time to make it nice or pretty. They're kind of, putting in least amount of work possible, just getting it done, right? But I would challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be. You only have one shot at this life, right? So why not bring your A game and be a version of yourself that is better than it's ever been? If you get out what you put in, right? So what if you, instead of, kind of half-assing things, you did your best work on something? You would not only get better results, but you get the opportunity to feel better about yourself, because you can't control the outcome, but you can control your effort. So if you put in a good effort, you get to feel good about that regardless. So on your plate, off your plate, we don't just do homework whenever we want to, whenever lightning strikes, whenever we feel like it. We do it in a systematic way. Start it as soon as possible. Get it off your plate, because then again, you build momentum, you feel better about yourself, you don't procrastinate. It literally changes everything. Okay, so read actively, game. This may seem like a big one, but I'll make it quick. Sometimes students don't do the reading for a class because A, maybe it's boring, long, they're tired, but also B, I think a big part of it is they don't find it very productive. Like they read it and then get down to the bottom of a page and they look up and they have no idea what they just read. So my job is to teach you how to avoid that. And you have heard of like SQ4R or different things like that. This is kind of a little bit like that, but I think it's simpler. So game is get a plan. The G is just like, don't read until you can't take it anymore. Like read with a goal. I'm going to read 10 pages, or I'm going to read this chapter. When you have a goal, your brain shifts from neutral into drive. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I know what I'm doing. So get a plan. Then annotate or mark it up, read with a job to do. Maybe you don't want to mark it up because it's an online book or you rented it or whatever. So skip to the next one, which is M, make a summary sheet. But as you're reading, do something. Type up a summary sheet, even just one idea per page, put it in your own words. Again, you're translating, you're putting the information in your own words, you're retrieving it. And that goes with the E, which is explain it back. The New York Times published an article about how to be a high-functioning college student, and they talked about the rule of two. The rule of two is whenever you read something, you should be able to turn around and tell me two things about what you read. If you can't tell me two things, you have to go back and reread it. So you might as well read actively and interact with it as you're reading, so that then you can tell me about the chapter or whatever, because as you're doing that, that's the output. You're reading it as the input, then the output is, can you tell me anything about what you just read? So if you read with that goal in mind, you're going to read much more actively and get more out of it. It's much better than the stare method or the skim and hope method or the I'm not going to read it method. All right, so that's game. Couple more, guys. You're doing great. I know this is a lot. Work first, fun after. My 17-year-old who goes to Roosevelt High School used to come home from high school and he would grab a Gatorade or a snack or whatever, and then he would game for like 3 hours. And then he would maybe think about homework. And at that point, his brain is in very much like Call of Duty mode or whatever. Like his brain is not engaged at that point in the evening. So I talked to him, I'm like, you know what if you came home, had a quick snack, looked at your phone for a minute, and then just slayed it, just on your plate, off your plate, get done with whatever you need to get done with. And then at the end of that, you get to have what I call high functioning relaxation. High functioning relaxation is when you've gotten your stuff done and you've earned it. You know that when you're playing video games or looking at your phone or binging that show on Netflix or whatever, you have earned that downtime, and it's so much sweeter. It like affects your nervous system differently. It hits differently because you know that you have earned this and you just get to feel better about yourself. When you put the cart before the horse and you do everything you want to do, and then you do the things that you have to do, in my world, we call that being in the dark playground. And the dark playground is where you're hanging out and you're having fun, but it's always feeling a little crappy because you know you should be doing something else. So it's kind of tinged with that guilt or shame or whatever. And we don't want to hang out in that yuck, right? We want to feel higher functioning and better than we ever have. So on your plate, off your plate, get it done, and then have high functioning relaxation at the end. Okay, couple more, guys. Hang out with people who are making good choices, because good choices are catchy and so are bad choices. That's why who you know and who you hang out with is more important almost than anything else. Because if you're hanging out with people who are not going to class, not doing their homework, making bad choices, maybe not being kind to you, that's going to affect how you are in the world. And if you're hanging out with people who love you, support you, who are making good choices themselves, those habits are catchy. So you are the company that you keep. So maybe try to find your tribe or your people who are on the same path as you are as quickly as possible. One way to do that is through like a campus club or organization. I have students right now who are in the criminal justice program. There's an amazing criminal justice club on campus where they have guest speakers, they go on field trips, they do this whole like drunk driving simulation day, which is hilarious. I mean, I know it sounds like hilarious, but it's actually kind of fun. And they also, there's a person who sponsors that club who's a great mentor who can give you ideas about like part-time jobs or internships or career paths. You're basically in the flow with people who are going in the same direction as you are, and they're going to help carry you there, right? Instead of you being all by yourself in this lonely little bubble, figuring everything out on your own, you want to get together with people who are going in your same direction, and you all help each other. And as human beings, we've evolved to help each other. We haven't evolved as like, whatever, 100 billion little isolated people, right? We come together as tribes and communities for a reason. That is the healthiest way to do it. And we need to surround ourselves with people who are going to make us feel good and support us. If you're having trouble finding those people, I can help you get connected on campus. But really, it is worth the work to do that. And you're worth it. A couple more. Self-care, self-care, self-care. I always tell students you can't build a skyscraper from the top down. You need a foundation. So I have students that are trying really hard, but they're not getting enough sleep. They're not eating very well. They're not exercising. They're staring at their phone just because they're trying to survive and they're so exhausted. And they're crawling through every day. And then they're wondering why they are not doing well academically, why they're depressed or anxious, why they have test anxiety. Their foundation is not strong. That's where we have to start. One way that I talk about this is that I deeply love my family and my friends, and I care about my students, my coworkers. I want to be the best version of myself every day so that I have all the energy in the world to give to everybody else that I care about. And I know that you guys probably feel the same way. You have people that you adore in your life, and you want to be the best version of yourselves for them. So it doesn't just affect you, it affects other people. And it's kind of like thinking about your driving, your life as a car, right? You want to keep your car filled up with gas, the tires, you need all 4 tires filled with air, you need the oil checked, you have to have a windshield that's not cracked. And if your car isn't running well, you're not going to be able to get from point A to point B, right? It's like trying to drive to California on 1 gallon of gas and 3 tires. If you want to get to California, you got to have a car that's fully functioning. So you need to go to bed on time. If I could wave a magic wand and give you all a bedtime, I would do that. Put your phone away and go to bed. Get the sleep that you need. Eat something that makes you feel good, not just something that makes you feel gross. Like, I know that it's fine to eat fast food occasionally and drink Red Bulls occasionally, all that kind of stuff. But if you only do that, your body is going to feel kind of crappy, and that affects your mental health, your emotional health, obviously your physical health. You're just going to feel like just a little bit worse, and your motivation is going to be affected, right? You're just not going to feel very good. Moving around, there's a lot of research that shows the correlation between movement and memory. So being sedentary is one of the worst things you can do for your brain, even if it's just to walk around the block. But exercise is huge for your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and your brain. Trying to balance out your day. A lot of my students see themselves as students, employees, and then couch potatoes. Like, you kind of go school, work, home, school, work, home. But really, you need to give yourself the grace to be like, I'm a whole person. I have interests, I have passions, I have hobbies. I am a whole human being, and I deserve to treat myself that way, right? So you need to balance out your day. Andrew Huberman, again from Stanford, talks about being on your feet solidly. And if you're on the balls of your feet, that means you're in hyperdrive. And if you're in that hyperdrive too much, again, the wheels come off, you run out of gas. But if you're on the heels of your feet, you're kind of always behind the 8 ball, always playing catch up. So you want to be solidly on your feet, fed, rested, good to go. And so self-care is what keeps you going in the right direction. It is foundational. It has to happen before anything else. It is as important as going to class or doing anything else. Okay, good. Last one, guys, be happy. So this may sound silly, but happy people have better outcomes. So what that means is, if you're waiting for happiness, for like, I'll be happy when I have more money, I'll be happy when I meet that right person, I'll be happy when I get that job. Nice in theory, in practice, it doesn't work. There's a lot of research that shows that people who always wait for happiness never really get there. So there's also research that shows that if you are happy now, you will have better outcomes. People that report themselves to be on a happier, a higher level of happiness have better outcomes with money, with relationships, with their jobs, with everything, health wise. I mean, happiness leads to success. Success does not lead to happiness. And no one's going to come around 5 years from now when you have that paycheck and that job and drip dopamine in your ear or hand you happiness like a Christmas present. Happiness isn't given or achieved. Happiness is created. And so you have to do the work to figure out what makes me happy or what makes me unhappy, and how can I give more to what makes me happy and try to address what's making me unhappy, because you deserve it. First of all, you all deserve to be happy. Second of all, you're going to have better outcomes if you prioritize your happiness, right? And third of all, we only have one shot at this life. And so you can go through it unhappy or happy, but you can't just always assume I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when. It just doesn't work. So all the advice I'm giving you, 1 through 12, is basically doable if you're happy. Have you ever tried to do your homework or do something hard when you're chewing on something that makes you miserable, like you had an argument with somebody, or you're just like upset or depressed or anxious or angry? It doesn't work, right? Your brain doesn't work very well. So we have to get to the point where we're happy enough to have some mental clarity and some emotional clarity to then proceed and be productive. So you have to connect with other people. Maybe that's a counselor. At Ankeny campus, we have these fantastic counselors in building 1. At the urban campus, they have wonderful counselors too. It's all confidential. It's all free. Prioritize that. And then also I would just show you this quote real quick from Richard Branson. He's kind of like the Elon Musk at the UK, but much less crazy. And he's a billionaire. He says, I know I'm fortunate to live an extraordinary life, and that most people would think that my business success and the wealth that comes with it have brought me happiness, but they haven't. In fact, it's the reverse. I am successful, wealthy, and connected because I am happy. So again, happiness creates better outcomes. So success doesn't necessarily lead to happiness. Happiness leads to success. Again, something that's really hard to wrap your brain around at first, but once you do, once I started thinking about me being a happier version of myself during the day, I started to be a better instructor. I started to be a better wife and mother. I started to be a better friend. Like literally, my whole life has been affected positively by prioritizing my own happiness. I'm a better version of myself for everything I want to do. Okay, another thing, this is our last slide. You guys are amazing. You've been listening so well. 4 things to think about as we're kind of wrapping up is the foundation is the first thing, right? You don't build a skyscraper from the top down. So you have to have sleep. You have to have good physical and mental health. You have to have good social connections. You have to feel supported. You have to be financially secure. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You have to have that foundation in order to do anything else. So that may be where you're working right now. You have to address your foundation. Maybe there's some cracks in it right now. Then you have to think about your systems. How are you getting sleep? How are you doing homework? Are you being deliberate? Are you using on your plate, off your plate? Are you only procrastinating? How can you change that system to a better system? How are you working and going to school? Are you exercising? How are you feeding yourself? Everything has to be in terms of systems, because then once you have a system, you can tweak it and make it better and better and better. If you don't have a system, you tend to have chaos. And then again, you tend to spend the whole day with mental gymnastics trying to figure out what to do. And that's very draining. Then you're using your resources, maybe the Academic Achievement Center, your professors, study groups. My son watches YouTube videos to learn how to do stuff. That's his jam. Love it. Counselors, advisors, me. I'll put my email address and name in the chat in case you want to reach out to me. Use your resources and be high functioning, and know that that makes you the hero of your own story. And then lastly, then you're just going to be left with adjusting. So maybe 1 week you have more hours at work and you have to adjust, or another week you have more homework. Another week you got sick. Maybe you need to think about, how do I limit my screen time? I put filters on my screen time so that I only get 30 minutes a day on Instagram, which you guys are probably like, Instagram? Who's on Instagram? Well, I'm old, I'm on Instagram. But I put a filter on that 30 minutes a day, and I know that after that I don't get any more. And that's an adjustment that I've made because I don't want to just be like phone. I don't want my phone to be the boss of me. I want to have control over my phone usage. So that may be an adjustment that you're doing, like limit your time on your phone. Maybe you need counseling or something else. I want you to always be tweaking and making adjustments so you can fine tune your systems, your foundation, your resources, so that you're, again, unrecognizable to yourself by how high functioning you're being. And then you get to the magical part of that is you get to A, meet your goals, and B, you get to be happier while you're doing it. All of this stuff, again, doesn't just affect us as students, it affects people as adults and professionals in your life. So that is my PowerPoint. I know that was a lot. What I'd like to do is hear from you. Here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see what your response is. Like, what were your takeaways? Did anything resonate with you from that enormous chunk of information, which you were very gracious to listen to? What made sense to you? What kind of, as you cherry pick that for your own situation, if you could put something in the chat, or if you could turn on your speaker, I'd just love to hear your thoughts.